Welcome to the fourth episode of the First Gen Sisters Pourcast. This is Nikki.
Dee Dee.
Maria.
Noelle.
This is where the wine flows and the tea spills. And you may need your GPS for this one. This time we're raising a glass at McGarry's Irish Pub in Maple Plain, aka the Irish Oasis you didn't know you needed. Don't know where that is? Well, it's by Long Lake. You don't know where that is? Just hop on 394, Highway 12, and drive west until your cell service gets questionable and your accent gets a little bit Irish. We're also spilling a hilarious tale from our trip to Lake Kabetogama when we were kids. Yup, that's a real place. And if you don't know where that is, head north until you almost hit Canada. Then you may need to stop and ask a moose for directions. Here's to a true Minnesota up north, yeah, you betcha adventure with shredded curtains, a muddy duck splash, and more. Cheers! First, let's talk about our que sera moment.
This past weekend, I was at my church selling que sera bracelets. It started as a simple table with bracelets, but it turned into something much deeper, a moment that I'll actually never forget. A woman and her daughter walked up to my table. She looked at the bracelets and let me know that she had already read our story online. The story about why we started the que sera bracelets. I smiled and asked how she was doing today. That's when everything changed. She broke down in tears. Through sobs, she told me that she had lost her mom this year to cancer. It was an aggressive cancer. They only had weeks after the diagnosis. Her mom was only in her 60s. It was a shock to her whole family. Her daughter was standing next to her and said to me, "It's going to be a rough Christmas this year." We all had tears in our eyes, and I walked around the table, and I asked, "Can I give you a hug?" And she said yes. So I hugged her and her daughter, and we held on to each other for about a minute. No words, just a hug. Sometimes silence speaks louder than anything else. It was really touching, but fantastic. Then I slipped 2 bracelets off my wrist and placed them in her hand. And I said, "Life is messy, but God's got you." We hugged again, and in that moment, it wasn't about selling bracelets. It was about reminding someone that even in the darkest seasons, they are not alone. That's what the que sera bracelets are all about. It's not just jewelry. It's a message of hope, reminder, and no matter how messy life gets, God's got you.
Oh, that's great, Dee Dee. That was a special moment. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about our journey out west to McGarry's and Maple Plain. I'm going to hand it over to Maria.
We pulled up to McGarry's, and it's got a super cute outdoor vibe, and we decided, hey, we are going to start doing TikToks. So perfect spot to do our TikTok. So we did our first little TikTok outside McGarry's.
And with our Pourcast shirts on.
Yeah, all of us with our shirts on. So we walk in, and the server or the hostess, super nice, and told her we're here to review the bar. And she proceeded to give us the best seat in the house, which was a church pew table near a fireplace. And word must have gotten around about the fact that we were here recording our podcast, because pretty soon the server came over, and her name was Bella, and she was super nice and attentive. And we just decided to give her a que sera bracelet and explain what we were doing. And she had to pull up a chair. She's like, "Wait a minute, I need to hear about this."
It was awesome.
It was awesome. And she had just had a rough day. And so she said it really made her night. And anyway,
Cry.
yeah,
She
she
said,
was.
"I try not to cry, you guys."
I know. And this is just the kind of reaction that we seem to get whenever we offer somebody a que sera bracelet. But anyway, the bar itself is really cool. It's truly authentic. It's got stained glass window or stained glass behind the bar. And the fireplace really adds a lot to it.
Lots of gifts, signs.
Lots of Irish signs. The menu was packed with favorites that are typically Irish. Shepherd's pie, fish and chips, corned beef and cabbage. And pretty much happy hour runs till 6 p.m. And it has specials with 2 drinks off of drinks. What did I say?
Two drinks.
Oh, yeah. $2 off all drinks.
Mine does too.
Yeah, $2 off all drinks and appetizers. And a lot of Irish themed cocktails.
Yeah, it was a really good experience. And Noelle was drinking Guinness on tap. We had some Jameson gingies, and then the waitress, I think they ran out of Jameson. And
Surprise.
and they offered us an upgrade, I guess, to proper 12, which was a smoother whiskey. We thought it went over really well.
I thought it was really good compared to as good as, if not
As-
better than Jameson.
Right, right. Step
Solid
up your
for-
game, Jamie.
Didn't we look it up? And it was owned by Conor McGregor, who is a famous world WWFA boxer. He looks kind of hot. Lots of tattoos.
But then word must have got out because that we were there as the podcast sisters. We did have our shirts on that say First Gen Sisters Pourcast. And lo and behold, the owner came to our table. It was so nice. His name was James, and he was Norwegian and was telling us a little bit about, not quite Irish, but close enough. It was in Europe. So, he passes, but very cool guy. He has more of a fine dining background. So I think McGarry's is changing a little bit. Their food was a little bit more upscale, and just everything that was on the menu was just a little bit more fancy than usual. And he also invited us to their special wine nights. They do them periodically throughout the year, and he was excited about them. And he was telling, yeah, it's a 5-course meal with wine, of course.
And the sommelier, who is an opera singer, who I actually knew when he mentioned the guy's name, Marcus, I had actually heard the sommelier sing opera before. So if you're into that, fancy wines, fancy dinner.
Yeah, and he's from
It's-
Delano too, right?
Yeah, he's from Delano.
Edie and Noelle lived in Delano for a while. All right, now we're going to talk about the pour score. We have 5 categories, if you remember from the previous podcast, but we talk about the bar stool breakdown and the vibes that we got, and I'll hand it over to Dee Dee.
The vibe was really good. Once you walked in, you definitely knew you were at an Irish pub because the stained glass behind the bar was amazing with a lot of heavy wood, church pews, and a lot of Guinness signs, and then just a cozy little fireplace just kind of for the backdrop.
All right, that was, I think everybody agreed that the barstool breakdown was awesome Irish vibes, and everybody there was really cool. So the scene and sip is who was there.
In the bar itself, there were a lot of people. It was quiet when we first walked in, but then it just seemed to get busier, and the bar was packed. A lot of the tables were full, and I know there's a separate dining room, and seemed like a lot of families coming in for dinner. But in the bar, it seemed like people were ordering drinks and appetizers and food. I'd say a lot of locals, probably from Maple Plain and the surrounding areas, but families too. So it was really a cozy, inviting place.
All right, and for the sports scene, I'm going to hand it over to Dee Dee.
Boo, Vikings are coming off a loss. It hasn't been the greatest season. No, it hasn't, bitches. But no sports scene there. You can go there to cheer or cry after the game.
And the girls' room, I didn't go in, but Noelle, you did.
Yeah, it was fine. It was very clean. It was a 2-stall bathroom, which I like that because you're not waiting for someone just to get out of the bathroom. So you can go just walk in if you just have to wash your hands. And I love their decor too because they've got very authentic Irish Dublin, St. James Gate, Irish Guinness signs everywhere.
All right, and then the tab recap. Marie's going to talk about that.
Really reasonable tab recap. We had quite nourishing meals. We had full for dinners for all 4 of us, and probably came to $45 with drinks. So
It was a hearty tip too, because they were
Yeah.
so great to us, and we wanted to make sure that we were generous with our tips.
all right, Nikki.
Cool. I think I'm going to give it a 10. I just loved everybody there. The vibe was really good. It was very Irish and super comfortable, and I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. From the owner, James, to our waitress, Bella, it was amazing. I'd give it the sister stamp.
Cool. What did you guys think?
This is Maria. I'm going to give it a 10 as well. I think that we were not incognito. We told them that we had a podcast and we were there to review the bar, and we had,
never incognito.
I know, but
Sure.
well, we all have t-shirts now that have our logo and stuff. So I feel like we got special treatment, but I think it's probably not unusual to get special treatment there. So I give it a 10.
Yeah. between the hostess, the bartender, James, the owner, Bella, our server, they were all very personal with us. James came and told us a little bit more about some of the special things they do in the bar, and they were genuinely interested in us and our family and why we do our podcast. And then also, I thought it was he did explain that his background was higher end restaurants, and you could definitely feel the hospitality was a notch up.
As per usual on the First Gen Sisters Pourcast, we're going to tell you a hilarious family story. I'm going to kick it over to Noelle.
All right, so this is our Great Lake Kabetogama adventure. It is the Great Minnesota Adventure. If you don't know where Lake Kabetogama is, like Nikki said, it's up in Voyageurs National Park near the Canadian and U.S. and Minnesota border. So long drive from Northeast Minneapolis. So we pile in the whole family into the Vista Cruiser, mind you, minus Maria, because, she was an older teenager at the time and had no interest in piling into the station wagon with 8 of us for a week-long trip. And we headed up north. So as soon as we pulled into the resort after a very long day of driving, we saw this girl. She was like this wild, shirtless, feral looking girl. She came sprinting after our car. And I was like, we were kind of proper, even though we sound a little feral, but our family was very proper. I'd never seen a girl without a shirt on before. And I wasn't, unless 8. I know, but
she ever shirt
but I don't know.
She was mowing the grass.
Yeah. So, but she was so fun. So anyway, after we got out and we met her and she brought us over to the resort, naturally we became best friends with her by dinner that day. And to this day, I have no clue even what her name is. I don't know if you guys remember, but something like something like Cindy of the Forest. I don't know, but we had so much fun with her. She showed us the way that they run their resort. We learned all about everything they had inside of that resort. So it was so cute. So then she even brought us over to our cabin. And then my dad decided we were going to be a fishing family for the week. A small problem. We didn't really fish outside of our small lake in Litchfield where our cabin was. I still remember that 9-horsepower motor we tubed behind with a literal tube from our car tire with that airport that sticks out. And we were always trying to flip that around.
We always had scratches on it.
But we rented a boat anyway. For Maria, not me. We rented a boat for the week. And Lake Kabetogama is a huge body of water. But my dad, not really thinking he was funny. He never thought he was funny. We always thought he was funny. But he renamed everything on the boat. And so he would yell to my brother, Paul, "Throw out the bunker." My brother's like, "You mean the anchor?" And the minnows were now minuses. "Pass me a minus." There he was yelling, "Throw out the bunker and grab the minuses." And we were all dying laughing. And my dad was...
Remember catching a fish?
I know.
Remember catching anything that weekend?
Yeah. But at one point, I decided to go feed the ducks near the docks. And of course, you guys were standing nearby because, we didn't know what to do without each other, even though we didn't really want to be near each other, but we were always in a pack together. So I went down there and my mom had given me some breadcrumbs and I was like, "Here, ducky," and leaning over, and I fell into this muck. It was sludge and it was so disgusting. And what did you guys do? You just stood there laughing, and I tried to crawl out like a creature from the Black Lagoon. I took what was probably the longest shower of my life, and my mom barely let me in the cabin. It was so gross, but...
You have a life jacket on.
Well, I could swim just fine. It was the gross muck. So...
Well, I had the life jacket on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the story about the life jacket is, we don't know why there was only one life jacket, but apparently when you have a family of 8 people getting in a boat, there's one life jacket. The big orange life jacket from the 70s. Yeah, that was the code in the 70s. And my mom was like white knuckling the seat while took these hilarious pictures of the only picture of my mom is the only one with a life jacket on, which is hilarious. But we all did swim well. We probably couldn't have swam to shore, but...
Did she have Pierre on her lap?
I don't think we let Pierre in the boat. But speaking of Pierre, so we had a spiritual crisis that weekend. Growing up Roman Catholic, my parents, no matter if we were on vacation, wherever we were, we always tried to find a Catholic church nearby. And they didn't ask around, but my mom and dad just thought, well, we'll just go drive around and try to find a Catholic church on Sunday morning. So we we left our poodle Pierre in the cabin and we all went out adventuring looking for a church. We did not find one. So we decided to come back to the cabin, and my mom made little wafers out of bread, and Dad decided to lead a very creative service while the rest of us tried not to laugh. But when we got back to the cabin, our dog Pierre had shredded the curtains. They were those like sheer curtains.
Cried and tried to sew them together, and then we laughed, so she just cut them off.
I'm sure they weren't real high.
While my mom laughed and held her nose, and we laughed at the dog because that dog was just something else. So anyway, we were pretty sure the Lord forgave us for giggling through communion and giggling at the shredded curtains. And then we took the classic 70s photo at the resort. Everyone posed with the giant walleye under the Welcome to Lake Cabotogama sign. We'll try to find the picture of Mom in the boat with us hanging off the edges of the boat, and then we'll try to find our classic family hanging off the walleye, Lake Cabotogama, Welcome to Lake Cabotogama sign.
And please find the picture of Dad on the giant fish. I remember them showing me the pictures of the trip because, as you know, I didn't come on that trip.
You're making out with your boyfriend.
I don't want to say. Anyways, my dad looked like he was frightened to death, hanging on for dear life to that fish.
Every time we go to Canada, up to Dee Dee's family's cabin, we get out and all the kids climb on that fish. And so it's tradition now that we have to get a photo with the fish.
And then the car ride there and back, what do you say about a family with 6 kids in the Vista Cruiser? It was chaos, fighting, singing, farting, someone always touching someone. No seatbelts, to be flat in the 3rd row so we could sprawl in sleeping bags like a pack of raccoons. And of course with Pierre. It was loud, it was messy, it was hilarious, and it was us, Lake Cabotogama, the trip where we laughed, we fought, I frickin' fell in the muck, and then we prayed in a curtainless, shredded, I would say not curtainless, but shredded curtain cabin, and somehow it didn't capsize the boat. Thank God. It was a classic, maybe it wasn't a classic Minnesota family vacation, but it was definitely our Minnesota vacation, so that's it. I'm going to turn it back over to Nikki, or no, actually to Dee Dee, to do the recap on just the end of our podcast.
But first, I want to just say this episode is brought to you by Palm Bay International. We are here drinking Portillo, a nice Malbec.
We almost dropped it.
Well, it didn't.
Well, I did kick it over and had a little shit moment, but the cap was on. Dee Dee saved the day. So
We're good.
we're pouring our glasses of wine. They are plastic, so we don't break them.
I knew it.
These connections made our journey worthwhile. Until next time, keep embracing those unexpected moments.
All right, I have to just say, the very first time we did this, we should have put it on our outtakes, but Dee Dee was doing our closing, and instead of doing our website, firstgensisterspodcast.com, she said www.firstgensisterspodcast, and then she did it again,
www.quesarad.com.
And the next day she called me and she's like, oh my God, Nikki, you have to edit that. And I said, I already did, because if I didn't, our kids would kill it. All right. If you liked what you heard and you had fun with us, please subscribe or follow, leave a review, visit our website, I'm just kidding. firstgensisterspodcast.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and now we're on TikTok.
And we have a special week happening here in our family. November 11th, 1933 was the day that our mom, Betty, otherwise known as Bridget, was born in Limerick, Ireland. And our mom passed away in January of this year. So it's our first year without us celebrating her birthday with us here. She's celebrating with our dad in heaven. And so we are dedicating this episode to our beautiful mom and grandma and great-grandma, Betty.
Que sera, Mom.
Que sera, Mom.
Que sera, Ma. Love you.
Where the wine flows and the tea spills. Until next time, cheers. Welcome to this week's episode of the First Gen Sisters. Oh, shit.